All right, you should see that pop on in the top. So once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the West Seattle Transportation Coalition's November virtual membership meeting. This will be our last meeting of the year, and we'll talk more about that later. We've got a number of great guests, as always, so I won't keep us too long and keep us moving forward. Tonight's packed agenda. We're in the middle of the welcome here at the top. We have approved previous meeting minutes, but due to some of my own backed up not getting things done, we don't have them to approve. So we'll be approving our October meeting minutes in the new year at our next meeting. But you can visit our YouTube channel. You might have to do a search for it because at the moment we have that really ugly jumble of letters and numbers. This is our plug to encourage everyone to go there and subscribe to get updates. We only post videos really pretty much once a month right now, so you're not going to get flooded with updates. But YouTube, as you get started, once you meet a critical mass, they allow you to change that jumble of letters into something that looks much more intelligible. So we're encouraging everyone to stop by and subscribe if you spend any time on YouTube. We'll get underway in just a few minutes. With what's become a regular conversation with the Seattle Department of Transportation. Tonight, we'll be talking about, well, I guess we know whether we're repairing or replacing the bridge, as well as talking about traffic volumes and speeds on West Marginal Way. We will transition from that to a conversation with the Port of Seattle and Northwest Seaport Alliance about current status of Terminal 5 improvements, as well as hopefully get a little bit of their perspective on how they're responding to the West Seattle Bridge decision. We will talk very briefly about the Seattle Transportation Benefit District, which got renewed, yay. And I believe we may actually swap in some guests from Avalon for a last minute conversation there. That's to be determined.
Actually, they're not coming.
They're not coming. There we go. So we'll talk very briefly about sort of what we might want to be excited about and lobby for regarding the STBD. Any old or new business? And here's your reminder that we have no meeting in December. So we typically take December off for the holidays. I apologize to those folks like me who don't celebrate Christmas, but it just seemed with the red bolded and the green, it just seemed too obvious to go with Christmas colors and not any other colors. So that just fit nice and graphically. If you've not joined us before, very quickly, the West Seattle Transportation Coalition is a peninsula-wide organization working to address transportation and commuting challenges for the nearly 100,000 people living and working here on the West Seattle Peninsula. And we do this through things that should seem pretty clear and obvious. We try to secure support of residents. We engage elected officials at all levels. We focus on all transportation users. That includes pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders. We partner with government agencies, which is probably pretty clear from the guests we have with us this evening. And we engage with businesses, community groups, and other folks here on the peninsula in order to both do education as well as collect feedback. You can visit our Facebook page for more about what we're doing on a regular basis, as well as we post news updates and things there. Our goals are pretty straightforward: affordable and equitable transportation options throughout West Seattle, particularly in historically underserved neighborhoods, a transportation network that moves people and goods in an environmentally and sustainable manner, and improvements and investments in transportation infrastructure to match Seattle's growth. And our current priorities, although we're wrapping up 2020, are to participate in planning to restore capacity in the West Seattle Bridge Transportation Corridor. We advocate for funding maximum mobility while the High Bridge is closed. We continue to support Sound Transit 3 planning for light rail to West Seattle, and we continue to monitor the Delridge Way multimodal project and the Rapid Ride H progress. I will briefly turn things over to our moderator, Kate, who hopefully can speak at the moment.
I can.
Good.
So I'll be facilitating the question and answer periods in the meeting. And there are a couple different ways that you can let me know that you have a question. One is by raising your hand, and I'll do my best to keep track of who raised their hand when. You do need to manually unraise your hand when you're done, and that's a good idea so I don't call on you again. And another way is in the chat, if we have that enabled, so everybody behave. And I really do invite you to ask your questions yourself by raising your hand, or just let me know in the chat that you have a question. You can always type your question in the chat and I'll read it for you. But if you ask it yourself, you can follow up if you've got more questions. So there we go. Back to you, Michael.
All right, thank you very much, Kate. So very quickly, now obviously we're not going to take the time for everyone to verbally introduce themselves. I am Michael Taylor Judd, and I am the chair of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. And Kate, my co-facilitator this evening, is one of our board members. But we invite folks, the chat is turned on, so take advantage of the chat, share your name, any pronouns or access needs that you want to share with us. I saw there, I think we have a few people this evening who are on the telephone, so I will do my best to make sure we unmute phones a couple of times so you can ask questions. Share with us your neighborhood. And I kept this question from last week, even though things have changed. You know, how are you feeling? Even though you know what the mayor came out with, or you'll learn tonight what the mayor just said, you know, has that changed how you feel? Are you excited to support repair? Or are you still thinking we should spend the time and the money to really look at replacing? And then additionally, if you are not currently on our email list, where we send out the monthly reminder and highlights of the upcoming agenda, you can send a private chat message there to John Wright, who's another one of our board members and another co-host in the background this evening, and he'll get you added to our email list. As I said earlier, due to me being behind and not getting last month's video up yet, we don't have minutes to approve, so we will move right now into our conversation with the Seattle Department of Transportation. We have with us tonight Heather Marks, Director of Downtown Mobility, who everyone should be familiar with by now. Sarah Zora is back, Mobility Manager for Reconnect West Seattle, as well as Trevor Partap, who was also with us last month, who's the Supervising Civil Engineer in the Transportation Operations Division. Madison, I believe you are able to grab for sharing.
Good.
Brilliant.
All right, take it away, Heather.
All right. Before I get started, I just want to thank Madison Lincolnmeyer. She accompanies me to all of these meetings and prepares all of the PowerPoints. She sets them up, I knock them down. So I really appreciate her help and support, and I'm so glad that she's on the team. Also, a little bit later on in the presentation, you will hear from Sarah Zora, who is the manager of mobility for the West Seattle Bridge Safety Program. She's in charge of Reconnect West Seattle efforts, as well as other mobility solutions related to the West Seattle Bridge Safety Program. So Trevor Partap is our resident brilliant traffic engineer who gives technical advice to all of us. He is also serves as our liaison to the crews who do the actual work out there in the field. So if we could move to the next slide, please. You may have all heard by now that the mayor has selected the repair pathway for the West Seattle High Bridge. It is the fastest way to restore mobility to West Seattle. And as a West Seattle resident myself, I certainly appreciate that. We've already begun work on repair. All of that stabilization work that I've spoken to you all about is the first phase of repair. The second phase of repair is what is going to get us to being able to drive back and forth on the bridge. We anticipate that those repairs will restore all the previous travel lanes, and we anticipate that that will be all done at least by mid-2022. We want to, at this point, be really cautious with things like costs and schedules, because we don't have any design for that second phase of repair. And the more we make promises before we know things, the sadder we are later. The repair is expected to last for years to come as we plan for replacement. The mayor was really taken by the rapid replacement idea, but was nervous about getting money together for it, as well as the timing in the environmental review. And so given those concerns, she thought that it would be best for us to proceed with repair, but then take on the type, size, and location planning for a replacement bridge. None of us have to be told what COVID has done to not just our West Seattle community, but the whole globe. We need an equitable recovery, and restoring that mobility is what is going to help buttress that. Next slide, please. The mayor the mayor considered safety, return to mobility, certainty, the impact on communities, jobs and economic recovery, and community input in making her decision. Deb has personally been in, I don't know, every single meeting with the mayor. She is very engaged with what the community is saying. She's also heard from our technical advisory panel, and Sam and I brief her each and every week. And so she's been following along with the progress that we've made. She sets a pretty high bar for information. And ultimately, she made this decision based on her own values. So next slide, please. So we know that the repair is feasible, and the repairs that we have completed to date, which are those stabilization measures, are performing well. Everything's within the tolerances that we expected. We're going to continue to monitor how they perform over the freezing weather. And we have some time for that, because we are not going to be at a place where we can advertise, sort of have a full designed package for advertisement until the spring. So we'll be able to see that full thermal cycle. The upcoming repair work includes additional post-tensioning, and I'll explain these photographs here in a second. That'll make some of that make more sense. We are going to review the seismic condition of the Pier 18 foundation and complete the study that models how likely it is that other parts of the bridge will need future repairs before the bridge is eventually replaced. So if you look at the photographs here on the side of this slide, you'll see some people in high visibility gear standing next to what look like thick black ropes. Those ropes are bundles of steel cables. Each 7 steel cables bundled together equals a tendon. So that's what you see there is a bunch of tendons. Each of those tendons carries about 280,000 pounds of force. Altogether, it's 3.3 million pounds of force, which is, a lot. The additional repair that we'll be doing will basically expand on all of that, that post-tensioning, and will expand the use of carbon fiber reinforced polymer. This is not a slam dunk, so I just want everybody to be clear about that. It remains a challenging engineering solution, and we can't rush. The stakes are high when it comes to bridges that carry traffic, and we don't want to take the risk that anything terrible is going to happen. And so we want to take our time with design and take our time with construction to make sure that when cars are back up on the bridge, everything is going to behave as we expect it to. Next slide, please. So SDOT is going to begin the alternatives analysis, which is that first stage of the type, size, and location effort that we're going to engage in. It's critical now to maintain the low bridge and other key infrastructure as we move forward into the serious repair. The city is also advocating for redundant modes of travel in and out of West Seattle. And we'll be working with our friends at Sound Transit to talk about how their bridge and our bridge may complement one another. You see some pictures here. The first one is a picture of what we call a U-bit, which stands for Under Bridge Inspection Truck. It's a pretty cool piece of machinery that has an arm that actually reaches out and underneath so that we can do that eyes-on inspection. And then, of course, a photograph of the low bridge with buses going across it. And you can also see where the platforms are that we've performed some of that carbon fiber reinforced polymer wrap work. Next slide, please. So I'm very happy now to answer any questions you have with varying degrees of candor. And once we wrap up that element, we'll move on to talking about West Marginal Way. So are there any questions?
I don't have anything yet.
Well, Kate, you know you can count on me to come back, and you know how to get in touch with me if you have a question.
Actually, I will jump in if nobody else has one. The ramps and the Spokane Street Viaduct, what's the lifespan on those parts that connect to the bridge?
The Spokane Street Viaduct, the ramp that connects it to the hybrid.
Just all the connecting bridges that get you to and from.
Yes, generally we design bridges for a 75-year lifespan. If I were a structural engineer, I could be a lot more specific about that. The Spokane Street Viaduct was recently widened. And so as part of that project, I am confident that they made some additional strengthening to make sure it could carry that additional load of the wider structure. There's how long things should last and how long things do last. And sometimes it's hard to know what the delta is going to be until you experience it, which is not particularly reassuring. But Matt Donahue, who is our chief bridge engineer, takes his job exceptionally seriously. And he's a courageous public servant. We're really lucky to have him. He's the one who made the call that we needed to close the bridge to traffic. And in doing so, it is possible that he saved lives. So we take that work very seriously.
Okay, thanks. Looks like Larry's got his hand raised and then Deb.
Okay. Larry, what you got? I bet Larry's muted. That's my bet.
Oops, sorry about that. Somebody else doesn't get to him before I do here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, recognizing that, I was one of the proponents possibly for the tunnel, which would have enabled kind of light rail. If we are just doing a repair, something's going to have to be done down the road to increase kind of our modes coming into West Seattle. So has there been some kind of discussions, and I realize that's maybe not the specific person to speak on this, but light rail, kind of what are the thoughts as far as how we're going to bring light rail in here now, if we're just repairing this bridge?
Well, the voters have approved Sound Transit to build a bridge to bring light rail into West Seattle. The mayor has expressed an interest in Sound Transit and SDOT working together, which candidly we do all the time, to talk about how we can make sure we're expanding mobility options with any structure that we end up building. That's in a really early stage. All of our good friends over at Sound Transit and the team here at SDOT, we meet at least monthly now to talk about this specific issue. And so I suspect that as time goes on, we'll be able to refine what's possible, both within time schedules that everybody's bound to, as well as voter approved language. In terms of the tunnel, I believe that we will be considering off alignment choices in the type, size, and location study. So stay tuned for that. The cost benefit analysis with, rough order of magnitude looks showed us that it's possible that a tunnel is going to be a really expensive choice, particularly when you consider the approaches. But at the same time, it's a technology that's available. And if we're not in a rush to replace the bridge, maybe it's something we'll take a second look at. Deb?
My question is on the types, the TSL, and since you shared that acronym with us a while ago, I've been like, ooh, sounds good. How much does it cost, and who does it, and who's going to be in charge of it? Is it still on your plate?
Yeah, it is. It's all still on my plate, Deb. I've just shed a few things from my plate. That's
Yeah.
what's changed. HNTB, our design consultant for the new bridge, their first task in their contract is to conduct this type, size, and location study. So they'll be doing that. And it's, I don't know what the cost estimate is for that work. I probably should, but I don't offhand. I do know that we budgeted $4 million for it.
Okay.
So I'll eat a bug if it doesn't come in less than that.
Look. But I remember you saying it took like 3 months, 6 months, something like that.
Well, that was the super maxi rush version.
Okay.
For a quick replacement. We'll probably take a more normal timeline for the type, size, and location. So it'll probably be more like a year or 18 months.
Great.
There will be ample opportunity for everyone to vent their spleen about the decisions that they want us to move forward with. No, I'm quite serious. You'll have lots of opportunities. So please do pay attention for those opportunities. And Deb serves on the community task force, so she will be a wealth of information about when we start getting those schedules together.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I've got a question in the chat. How is the repair construction going to affect traffic coming off Harbor Island?
It shouldn't.
Is it all done from above, kind of an inside?
Yeah, the high bridge is pretty high above the low bridge. I know that sounded a little silly, but it really is. So that's what those platforms were for, the platforms that we constructed. So for repair, and I don't know what the means and methods the contractor will choose, but I imagine there will be work platforms. The box girders are huge. They're like 20 by 20-ish. And so a lot of work happens inside the girders, which is why it doesn't look like anything's happening, but it's just because it's all inside.
Does that apply to the low bridge as well?
The low bridge is a different kind of bridge.
Well, I mean, are we expecting closures during the repair? Yeah.
We are not expecting closures of the low bridge for purposes of the high bridge repair. We are going to have to do strengthening for the low bridge. There will certainly be closures of the low bridge, but they won't be long-term closures. It'll be, we have to put this in the specs for the contract, but it'll be like a long weekend. And we'll work closely with our friends at the port to make sure we can schedule that in a way that's going to be least impactful. But I also just want to note that much like your house, maintenance must be done. And sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it's massively inconvenient. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't have anything else in chats or raised hands. So last call.
I see we've got 2 people who appear to be just on telephones, unless somebody is doing both phone and a video screen. I believe if you're on phone, I can't unmute, so I believe you have to do it's either *6 or *7, I think, to unmute yourselves. But so now is your opportunity to do that if you'd like to ask a question. All right, I don't hear anything. So why don't we
move on to the next?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's *9 to toggle mute and unmute in Zoom. So good thing I checked that. But we'll move on, and if folks want to, if they need to unmute themselves later, they can ask a ask
I thought
questions
it was-
later.
I thought it was *6 too, so that's good information. So I want to first thank you for having me, and I will be happy to join you again in January if you wish to hear my shtick. And then please let me introduce to you Sarah Zora, who is my colleague, friend, and partner in crime. Sarah, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Thanks for having us, everyone. I'm here to talk about Reconnect West Seattle and more specifically West Marginal Way. Next slide, Madison. Just a quick slide about where we are with Reconnect West Seattle. You know, we have 22 projects scheduled for 2020 completion. We have completed 15 of those so far, and we have 33 projects scheduled for 2021 completion. We are committed to doing quarterly implementation reports, so the first one coming out here will be in December. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we're here to talk about West Marginal Way. Michael, I know you had talked about volumes and speeds. I actually looked back and saw that we hadn't really talked a lot about West Marginal Way as a whole from with this committee coalition. So I'm here to do a little bit more than just volumes and speeds. As you guys know, West Marginal Way is a pretty critical corridor right now. It is one of the detour routes from the closure of the High Bridge. You know, there's very significant challenges with this corridor. There's very high speeds. There's a need to have better safe accessibility and access to the Duwamish Longhouse. We've heard of different issues at the West Marginal Way, Highland Parkway intersection. We've definitely been talking to some freight communities about access to and from their businesses, especially on the riverside, the east side of the corridor. And there are some missing links in the pedestrian bicycle infrastructure and network that we're looking to connect. I would like to remind you that you know, since that closure has occurred, we have seen volumes increase on here as well as speeds. And the five-way intersection really is still that constraining factor for that southbound movement from that five-way. There's just that one lane and then it opens up into two. And I'll get into some of the existing conditions as we move forward. Next slide, please, Madison. So we have some things that are definitely coming in and have been installed already in 2020. And there's some things that are coming in 2021. And there's some things that are still being discussed that potentially could be coming in 2021. So if you go to the next slide, Madison, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Duwamish Longhouse crossing signal. This has been a pretty important project for the Duwamish for quite some time now, as you can see from the history on this slide. You know, they have events there, not parking very accessible, except for the lane drop that we have built out in 2019. And through Reconnect West Seattle, we have committed to funding, if you go to the next slide, Madison, both the interim and the permanent signal. So there will be an interim signal that we have a huge desire to build in 2021. And that would really increase the safe accessibility to the Duwamish Longhouse across West Marginal Way. They have some parking on the east side. And we hope that there will be a permanent installation for the signal in 2022. So that's one thing that is definitely coming up in 2021, that interim signal, which is something that is a really huge benefit for the Duwamish Longhouse. And yes, I just saw Deb's comment in the chat over here that City Council actually committed to funding this. We were committing to funding it out of the Reconnect West Seattle funding, and now I think there's actually more funding for it from City Council today. And as you know, they do their final budget. I think it's Monday, this coming Monday. So there's still, it's very interesting, and we love that this is going to be definitely funded and provide some good safety for the people that are coming to that cultural center. We have completed 2 different projects in 2020 so far. We have installed 6 radar feedback signs. As you know, one of the challenges on this street is pretty high levels of speed. So that was one of our ways to try to educate people about how fast they're going, make sure they understand the speed limits, as we have reduced that speed as well. We have also done some interim intersection improvements at Highland Park and West Marginal Way intersection. We have We have redone the channelization at the intersection of Highland Park going eastbound towards passing through the Duwamish. So we now have a right turn lane and 2 through lanes, and we have some after studies coming on what that looks like. So we're going to see how efficient we've been able to make that intersection flow a little bit better for motorists. In 2021, we will be looking at all the concrete, the non-engineered term I say is pork chops. You know, all the concrete rises that you see in the screen in the picture, just to see if there's any more efficiencies that we can try to deliver at this intersection, being one of the major detour route intersections that we have been carefully monitoring. If you go to the next slide, Madison. And so here's some of the 2021 improvements. We are committed to doing this west side walkway connection. If you look on the map on the right side of the screen, it goes from the existing half signal just south of South Idaho Street to the Duwamish Longhouse. So this is a really important part. You know, right now, if you look at the picture, it's kind of like the goat trail. You know, there's not a good, safe, accessible place to have that. So that is one of our commitments to building in 2021. The things that are still in discussion and under some more analysis are what to do with the roadway itself. So we do have 2 more things that we were trying to commit to in order to get connectivity for our most vulnerable users, those walking and biking, and then some freight mobility improvements. We had proposed a northbound freight access, a fab lane, a freight access business lane, kind of like a transit lane. And that we have taken off the table. That didn't really interest a lot of people, and people were quite concerned about that. We are still working with the entities along both sides of the corridor to see if there's different freight mobility improvements that we can make along the corridor, and especially in terms of safe access in and out of the West Marginal Way businesses on that east side where they have some of the larger trucks coming in. If you go to the next slide, Madison, I did want to talk to you guys about what's happening right now with the existing conditions for the southbound travel lanes. I'm really going to be focused on southbound travel lanes right now because that's where the proposal is that is causing some of the greater conversation, I'll say. So right now we have so the lane drop that occurs, as you can see with the delineator posts and the paint, is really coming up at the corner of, around South Alaska Street. And this is really where we have the lane drop that goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane. If you go to the next slide, Madison, you'll kind of see the, so if you're starting at the north end of the corridor at the 5-way intersection, we have that constraint of just the 1 southbound lane up until that first existing half signal, and then the southbound lanes open up into 2 southbound travel lanes, and then at the next existing half signal going southbound, that South Idaho Street, it starts to merge about 100-200 feet after that into the lane drop situation, which was something that was put in 2020, not 2021, in 2019 for some ability to have different bus and ADA parking along the Duwamish Longhouse, and some better accessibility and safety for them to get in and out of their driveway, which is in the picture right here. And then after that, it opens up again into the 2 lanes where it's about 2 miles, 1.5 miles until you get to the major intersection at Highland Parkway and West Marginal Way. So that's the existing conditions we're looking at. If you go to the next slide, Madison, this is the original proposal that we brought to the Community Task Force. This was something that was actually highly recommended in our Mobility Action Survey that we did prior to Labor Day, when we were trying to collect a lot of information from the community about what would it take them to kind of change their mode, if they're willing and able to make sure we can still have a lot of mobility within West Seattle. So this was a 2-way protected bike lane that would convert that outside southbound lane into a bike facility, so that we can connect from the existing half signal, which is where the Duwamish Trail ends on the east side of the street, and cross them over to the west side and get them up to that next half signal, so that we have some safe bike connectivity, especially if you're trying to get to the West Seattle Bridge Trail. If you go to the next slide. Now there's some follow-up ideas. So we've been hearing a lot of concern about the taking of that outside lane and going from a 2-lane situation to a 1-lane situation. We also have been hearing that if we have something in the roadway on that outside lane to that existing half signal, should we extend that thing to the Duwamish Longhouse upcoming signal so that there's not another gap of unusable space, I'd say, because that's exactly where the lane drop occurs right now. So we are still open to ideas about what we could do for bike connectivity in this area. If you guys have ideas or something else to consider, we have looked at different alternatives, you know, and some things are kind of way out of the cost kind of extreme in terms of if we wanted to try to extend the Duwamish Trail on that east side, because the BNSF has their rail lines there. And what would we do with that space if a two-way PBL is not installed? So these are some of the questions. I hope that if there's any willing participants that would like to share any of their thoughts on that, I would love to hear them. But I would just like people to know that we're still definitely in a listening mode for this portion of the project, what to do, if anything, to change the roadway channelization. Mass, if you go to the next slide, and then we can, so we do have some more data collection coming. We have the tubes out on West Marginal Way right now to do, we do before studies and after studies, especially as we're installing these radar feedback signs. So the after study results, we do not have them yet. We are still collecting that data, and I'll be able to definitely share that at your, if you would like us to come back at your meeting in January. We are doing additional engagement. We're doing some targeted surveys and outreach along the corridor for specific entities that have property right there. We're going to try to invite our community task force to do a walk along the corridor to make sure that we have better understanding from that group perspective of all the different challenges that we are kind of seeing in that corridor, and then some broader engagement as well, such as this meeting. We're coming with a greater communication plan for all West Seattle Bridge program for into 2021. And then those next steps, after we hear from more people, we'll get back into some of the potential options for what that roadway or connections could look like. I do have Trevor here as well so that he can answer questions about any of the speed limit reduction information, as well as answer questions if there's any, you know, in terms of operations of West Marginal Way. That was all I was going to present about tonight for you guys, and I know I'm probably a little bit tight on time. Michael, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. I do have a quick question for you, Sarah, which is slightly outside of this corridor.
Okay, yeah.
And that is, we've been receiving some inquiries from folks on Harbor Island, specifically folks who live here in West Seattle and work on Harbor Island. And two things have come up. One, like whether as we continue to look at opening up some of the restrictions on the lower bridge, is there a way to look at, like, could someone show that they actually work on Harbor Island and get access to go over the lower bridge? But also a question, there seemed to be some confusion. I was under the impression that there are new bus stops in both directions down there for the West Seattle buses going by along Spokane Street. But some people were telling me they only seem to, the bus only ever seems to stop coming back into West Seattle. So are they just missing where the bus stop is going eastbound, or is there
You're
in
talking
fact?
on the low bridge right now, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure if I'd have to look into the bus stop issue. I haven't heard that yet, to be quite
Could you
honest.
check into that, or
Yes.
someone at SDOT check into that and get back to us? Because I, like I said, I assumed there's a stop on both sides,
Okay.
but we've been hearing that maybe they're only seeing it on the one side coming back westbound. So
Okay. Yep. I'll check that out for you and give you guys an email to let you know what we find out. In terms of the low bridge, you know, we have the low bridge subcommittee from the community task force and 2 other people outside the community task force. So we're still meeting with them weekly. You know, it's a challenging situation to try to figure out, like, that final user group of who should qualify to get access across that low bridge. You know, like, we prioritized emergency, freight, and transit, and then it's a question of what other entities do we have it. So we have placard system now, and we're going into the automated enforcement coming up here, which is a camera related enforcement coming up here in January. So we do have a lot of shifting policy happening to going from placard to automated, and January will be a really good time for me to come back and let you know how that has progressed as well, if that's something you guys would want to hear about.
yes, please.
Okay.
Kate,
right.
do we have any question, one or two, before we are running a little behind, so one or two
Okay.
questions before we
I just
transition?
have one in chat. So is there any way or interest to add an eastbound lane under the First Avenue South Bridge to relieve stress on the Highland Park West Marginal intersection? Trying to
Really
picture
interesting
that.
question, Deb. I'm going to see if Trevor might have a sense of the roadway width and configuration right there. In my head, it's hard for me to
Yeah,
picture that.
we can look at that a little closer, see if there's space. I just know that you know, if we get all the traffic, you know, to the bridge faster, we're just moving the congestion point.
Mhm.
So, but it is something, you know, we can take a closer look at as we you know, just model the area.
Right. As I'm there and within all the backup, you're right. There's only so much roadway space for the vehicles. And then as they move in between the lights until you reach the east side of the First Avenue Bridge. And then you have a bit of everyone jostles for position to get either over the First Avenue Bridge or get out of West Seattle, get out of the south end and head south. But that the bottleneck is that intersection. And if there were any more room within the eastern end of that intersection, I doubt that there is, but because there is so much, as Mayor Nichols says, there's so much concrete out there, can't you do something with it? I didn't know if you had any plans to look into that.
Yeah.
We can now. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. We could take a look at it, and like as you know, there is limited space out there, but we'll see what we can.
And maybe it's temporary space, or maybe it's for buses only. Ooh, an actual transit lane. Okay, don't get excited.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Well, big thank you to Sarah and Trevor for joining us again. I am going to keep us moving underway here.
Can I just say one thing? I just
yeah.
hope that you guys must have seen the email I sent about the West Marginal Way speed limits. I shared the volume data and the decision memo regarding that. Just wanted to make sure that you guys had a chance to see it.
You probably sent that to Mark and copied us. Was that it?
I sent it to Mark, and then he responded back to
Okay.
everybody to include you guys. So there's some links in there to some case studies showing how lowered speed limits reduces high-end speeding and reduces crashes. And then obviously it's consistent with it's an engineering decision consistent with our policy on setting speed limits. So just have a read through and make sure that you get, I just want to make sure that you guys knew the position of how we got here.
All right.
I have one question. Sorry, Trevor.
Yeah.
West Marginal Way speed limit's 25. Is East Marginal Way, when I'm there, it's a higher speed limit, which I'm kind of thrilled to buy. But is East Marginal Way supposed to be 25 and it just hasn't been re-signed yet, or what?
You know, let me double check our speed limit map. We have a link showing where all the speed limits are going in the city.
Right.
I don't know that specifically. And we are changing speed limits in that we're reducing them through May of next year. I think is our target.
Okay, so it could be a rolling thing and you just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it takes a while. And just so you know, in the past, there's been, you know, the spacing of speed limit signs was about 1 mile to 1.5 miles. And now the speed limit signs are every 1/4 mile. So as we go through and we install all these, you know, we change the speed limits, we're actually, you know, quadrupling or, you know, sometimes even.
Yeah, we just got a sign around the corner from us at 25 miles an hour. It's like, look, a new sign. We've never had a sign on Graham Street. So, but yeah, if East Marginal Way, which gets you to the South Park Bridge and is a very popular route, still says 35.
Okay, yeah, and I'll double check that. And there's a map. Like I said, there's a map. I just don't have it memorized yet. And I don't think I ever will to that point.
Oh, well. Okay. Well,
It's
thank
also-
you. We'd love to know, because I think they East and West should have the same speed limit, you would think.
Sure. We can.
Otherwise, it's so confusing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Right.
We'll see. We'll hopefully have you back next year.
Obviously. Woohoo.
All right. Hopefully folks can see My slides again. Before we transition to our next guest, another quick ad, if you will. Other folks that we'll be looking to have back next year, more visits from our Sound Transit folks, but they passed along a message to share. They have a new informational online open house, which is live, to share information about the project in advance of the release of the draft EIS next year. Their updated site features an overview of the environmental review process, maps, elevation profiles, new maps for stations, cross sections of elevated stations, as well as more information on how people will access those. I have not had a chance to go through it yet myself. I know Lita is on the call if she has anything to share. And you can reach that by going to wsblink.participate.online. Without further ado, I will move us on to our next guest. Once again, we're having a conversation with the Port of Seattle and Northwest Seaport Alliance about their Terminal 5 improvements, and as well as maybe some of their reactions to the mayor's statements on how to proceed with the West Seattle Bridge. We are joined tonight. I believe, I'm not sure I saw her, if she's here, Emma Del Vento, the T5 project manager. We also have
here I am.
Oh, good. We also have Christine Wolf, Transportation Planner for the Northwest Seaport Alliance, Zach Thomas, Director of Operations for the Northwest Seaport Alliance, Lindsay Wolpa, who we're familiar with, Senior Manager of Waterfront Redevelopment Programs with the Port and Northwest Seaport Alliance, and of course, Mick Schultz, who's also another old friend of ours. Not old, but longtime friend. Sorry there, Mick. Community engagement for the Port of Seattle. And I believe Mick is ready to take over the screen and share slides.
I will do that. Bear with me for just a moment. Gonna try one more time. Okay, we're getting there. We did it. There we are. So Emma, we are ready to go anytime you are.
Hey, thanks, Mick. I appreciate you bringing up the slides. So as you can see, this is an extract of the slides that we recently took to managing members from the beginning of October. And we can move on to the next slide with some content. So the second slide, I don't see it. Oh, here it is. It's a little bit delayed. So again, what are we doing? What are we doing out there? In orange, you can see that we are going to be doing berth deepening. And then in the light blue, the dock upgrades, dark blue, the power upgrades that come over to the new primary substation. And then in green, numerous upland improvements that are going to be happening. Now they're currently mostly in design, but over the next couple of years. So as we move on to the third slide, there are some recent photos. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of the activity at the wharf. And so right on the waterfront there, where they're looking to put in the fender system and then the cable slot for the crane. And then on the right-hand side is the gleaming new primary substation building. And next to it, as the caption says, are the transformer pads for Seattle City Light to install the new transformers at the substation.
Sorry if I got a little ahead of you there.
No, that's perfect, actually. That's really wonderful. Thanks, Mick. So the project has entered a really repetitive phase now on the north berth as the work moves from north to south along the wharf. The general contractor is moving forward with the elements that are listed. So the above water dock construction, that's moving forward on schedule. The two crane rails, land side and water side, also on schedules, and then the electrical substation. There's also utility lines that are going to be updated running down the length of the dock. And then for the in-water work, you might have noticed that in the last few weeks, we have just started the tow wall pile driving in water. For the upland improvement projects, we're looking at numerous enhancements to the gate, and then the other components are going to be the stormwater treatment system. We're at 90% design, expect to construct half of it in 2021 and the other half in 2022. And soon to break ground on the marine buildings in the next few months. There will be 2 marine buildings. We'll build one now and another one later. And we will add power into the uplands for the refrigerated units. We have also been competitive in winning grants. So recently the Maritime Administration awarded us a grant in PIDP, and we were also awarded from the Department of Ecology a stormwater grant. The shore power, I believe, is in progress. So some more pictures of bright sunny days out on the terminal. So on the left-hand side, close up there of some of the pile structure required to be strengthened in order to put in the new landside crane rail. And then in order to get the tow wall in, those elements on the right-hand side are the king piles that constitute the tow wall. So it's pretty impressive seeing them moved around the wharf, and then how they're then elevated and moved into the water to be put near the barge so they can drive them in. It's really exciting to see that happen. Quick look at the schedule. So we are looking to do this in 2 major phases, north berth and south berth. So phase 1 is the north berth, and we're on track to turn over and start operation in April. Actually, in April, we'll finish, the cranes will come in, and then once the cranes are commissioned a few months later, international operations are going to start. And then we are going to start aggressively on phase 2, which is the south berth at that stage. So by the end of 2022, the south berth construction will be completed. And concurrently with this timeline, you see underneath, the upland improvement projects are moving forward currently and mostly in design, and then going through different phases of construction. And the last slide is the look ahead. So what are we expecting between now and the end of the year? We turned over the site to Seattle City Lights. So the bottom photo, you can see the transformer pads. Those were completed. We received and approved the stormwater 90% design. So the bid package will go out early next year. Continuing to move forward with the quiet zone property acquisition negotiation, and then different elements of the signalization have been completed, and the quiet zone civil design has also been finalized. I think I've spoken to the other elements, and then early next year, as I mentioned, marine buildings, Seattle City Light will be complete on site, and I've already spoken to the stormwater progress. So that is T5 in a nutshell. Where's the location of the stormwater treatment facility? So there are going to be 4 main areas, 2 along the wharf, 1 kind of near the entrance, and then 1 kind of on the north part of the terminal that are going to be the main units. And so it will be comprehensive of the entire Terminal 5 property.
Okay, I don't see anything else or raised hands right now. Did you have anything, Michael?
I'm wondering if you're seeing any impacts at the moment, with the upper bridge closed, or is that having impacts on, various construction and different things going on? Or is...
We have some slides about that. Mick, will you bring up the West Seattle
All
slides?
right.
You need to pull them out.
All right, thanks everyone. And yeah, Lindsay is from here, the expert, along with Mick and Christine on all things traffic.
Give me just a moment, Lindsay. I thought I had the right deck up, but I didn't. So just 1 minute.
And for construction, it has not been significant or notable.
I'll put a plug in, when the new cranes are arriving, might be a good opportunity to put out, a little media news release.
Oh yeah, it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, I know our neighborhood group really enjoyed West Seattle blog, took photos of some of the cranes that went away from the port. I think you were sending them down to Tacoma, if I'm remembering right. And everybody really loved checking out some of the photos of those floating away. So I'm sure there are quite a few folks who would like to see new ones floating in.
Yeah, they're going to be big. So yeah, 3 went to Tacoma and 3 then went to Everett.
When we brought them in from China for the Tacoma ones, because we have a similar strategic project in Tacoma that was completed, we actually tracked those all the way from China across, and you could see them in Seattle coming by our, by Alki on their way to Tacoma. It was pretty significant. So we'll do a lot of that work coming in April, and we'll make sure to invite you guys along and can come give an update then as well. I'm just going to jump in. We don't really need the slides. I think part of it is, as I think you guys know, we've been here a couple times talking about West Seattle Bridge and the focus, and it's something that we haven't necessarily had that direct impact, but it's something that the lower bridge, for example, has been a big focus of ours. We've had basically 8 guiding principles that have it's been low bridge freight access, maritime industry access, strategic economic impact, local operation support. Sorry, that's my 15-month-old in the background. He wants to join in. Rapid restoration, equitable implementation, and sustainable solutions, and broadly supported execution. So they're all fairly straightforward issues in terms of the regional impacts of what this bridge means, the issues for the full maritime industry and the supply chain. And we've been very focused also on the issues of rapid replacement. So the slide that you saw that Emma had up with the timeline, you notice, we're scheduled to open Terminal 5, the first berth next year. We have the next berth going immediately into construction in 2022. So with the mayor's decision today, that allows us to open the full terminal, knock on wood or whatever your lucky things are, when we have the traffic back on the high bridge. So that will not only make a significant difference for the flow in and out of the terminal, it'll be a great impact, I think, for the community as well, because it's been about 6 years now, almost 7 years since we've had that terminal fully operational. I think most of us have probably lived in West Seattle that long, but things have changed. More people have moved here. And all of a sudden the experience of having a 2-berth international facility is going to feel differently. I see something coming. So this is what I was just mentioning. If you don't mind going to the next slide, Mick, thanks. So we, alongside everyone else, we were really focused on these different issues. And we do have the joint commissions of the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Seattle. And so because the marine cargo terminals are Seaport Alliance managed property, we were regularly having to give all 10 elected officials an update because there's been a lot of investment into Terminal 5. So as they look through these issues, these were the top ones in terms of the timeline, the reopening, Sound Transit 3, as well as the other 2 goals of lower bridge access and maritime access. The other piece, which I know has been discussed quite a bit, and the mayor brought this up today, is the funding component. We have done what we can to support the city as looking in Olympia and DC with the regional message, and so, but also wanting to understand how that applies to the repair versus replace. And so we feel like this was a really good decision today. And that's really all I had. I'm happy to answer questions, but it is something that we'll continue to be following very closely. Our commission, Seattle Commission President Steinbrook, is on this, an ex officio member of the CTF along with Deb. So he's been there at all those meetings as well and has been very involved. He attended the press conference this morning. We're participating in the subcommittee, so he was very enthusiastic. He was very excited this morning, and I think it was a great. You may have seen we had a statement from our co-chairs which Pierce County and Tacoma, we came together on this, and they're both really happy with the direction forward. And so I'll just leave it there, and we're happy to answer questions. I see Kate, you know how many trucks use. So port trucks don't, the way it exists now, port trucks don't access the high bridge because it doesn't go directly into terminals. They come, you know, in terms of coming off at the Admiral exit or up, you know, or the Delridge exit, you can't do that maneuver to get into Terminal 5 or Terminal 18. So they all take the lower bridge to get there. So it won't be a difference of numbers because they'll continue to take the same route.
Okay, so not many trucks take the high bridge except to like deliver to West Seattle and
those
that
are
sort of thing.
non-port trucks.
Yeah.
So those are all.
Yeah. Okay.
So people often assume, and I think this is because we're out there doing this stuff, is that, you know, freight trucks there's obviously the UPS trucks, the delivery trucks, you know, the ones that are going to restaurants or grocery stores, or, you know, the Amazons that are coming to all of our houses. And then there's the port trucks, the ones that actually have they're called 20-foot equivalents on the back of their trucks, and they're actually going in and out of the terminals. Those ones, the port trucks, do not use the high bridge. So in terms of the other freight numbers, I'm afraid I don't have those. I'm sure Christine, I know my colleague Christine may have some more details on the breakdown, but I'm not sure we're familiar with that.
There would be the new core trucks, which are large, but those would typically have metal on them. So they'll use the high bridge.
Would the port's interest be more in the traffic relief that comes with the high bridge reopening? Okay, got it.
Yeah, the focus is
correct.
yeah, exactly what it is.
Yeah, and Sarah and Trevor and Heather jump in. Yeah, most of the high bridge actually always has had a relatively low volume of truck trips. And most of those are really serving the neighborhood, you know, and it's interesting because the city is doing some great work with an outfit at the UW called the Urban Freight Lab. They've done some really, really interesting package delivery work around downtown, and they've been doing work in Ballard related to the Ballard Bridge and the corridor that serves that neighborhood. And they're doing the same thing now for West Seattle, just taking a look at what are the delivery needs, how does it happen, what kinds of vehicles, what are the numbers, and so on and so forth. So, you know, they're trying to take care of you by better understanding the needs that the neighborhood has so that they can pay attention as they make adjustments to the transportation system. So stay tuned for that.
Thanks, Christine. Kate, I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I don't see any hands raised or anything else coming in.
So Lindsay, sounds like now we'll just be back to where we were before, where we're trying to figure out how to cram a light rail bridge in between the existing bridge and all the port facilities.
Yes, hopefully south. Sorry, Pete. Is Pete Spalding still on here? Sorry to all the Pigeon Point residents, but yes, we hope for south. That is the preferred. But, we are always happy to come and participate. We appreciate you guys inviting us in here. We'll definitely be back with those exciting crane developments and as anything with T5. And so, and always appreciate it. I see some of our city partners still on here as well as Lita. Hi, Lita. Yeah, good to see you guys.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. I mean, we have lots of folks who are looking down on your facilities and always like to know what's going on there. And then, of course, you know, we're always concerned with how is, you know, the movement of goods. How do we make sure that continues in amongst the movement of people, making all of this work in a tight corridor. So we appreciate you getting back to us with data and answering questions when we have it. I see Deb waving her hand.
I just want to share that I've been able to talk with two of the members of this traffic lab. They were interested in interviewing the community task force members of the West Seattle High Bridge group. And I, jumped in there and spoke with them and gave them the background of West Seattle and the old finger, this is West Seattle and this is the rest of Seattle and the whole bit, and gave them lots of people to talk to, including, I hope that they would be able to talk with Peter, and he's looped you in, Lindsay, I think. Anyway, there are two international students, one from Italy, and one from Athens, Greece. So, and brand new to the city of Seattle, but they're with the University Traffic Lab, and they're PhD students, and they want to figure it out. So if you run into, and I had actually invited them to this meeting tonight, but I don't see that they're here. So it's important for them to get as much information about everything going on in freight and traffic in West Seattle. So if they contact you, they're nice folks. Go ahead and answer their questions.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, our team, including Christine, our transportation, you guys probably know Jerry Poor, our ops team. I think Zach and Steve Queen are probably going to engage with them. So we actually had a meeting with some representatives from them yesterday. So yeah, we absolutely we've jumped in there, and as usual, Christine's all over it. So thanks, Deb.
Very cool. Very cool. They were very, very good to know that many people are working on this.
All right.
Thanks to my colleagues for spending the time here. Zach Thomas, Director of Operations, he's been quiet there behind, but he's always good for the details on a lot of these pieces. So we'll be back soon, and thanks for having us.
All right, thanks for joining us. I love when folks are done a little early. That gets us back on track with the agenda here.
Nice.
So a reminder yet again, happy holidays from WSTC. Again, as usual, we're taking off December for the holidays. So we're wishing you and your loved ones a safe and healthy holiday season and a very happy New Year's Eve. I found this lovely photo there off King County Metro, has a Flickr stream. And so I have no idea personally who Vashon Dude is. But he has this great photo here, which I'm not sure exactly where I don't know if that's on Vashon or if that's over here in West Seattle. I mean, it could easily be Delridge, but it could also be easily a whole bunch of places in the city.
Yeah. Scary. Absolutely terrifying to see that again.
So I did promise we would chat very briefly. If folks missed this and all the other drama that's been happening around this year's election, the Seattle Transportation Benefit District did get renewed by a whopping 80.34%. And you can see that 87% of registered voters participated, which is just like crazy phenomenal numbers. Tells us what happens in a good presidential year when we get good active folks out to vote. But those are crazy numbers even for continuing an existing tax. For folks who aren't aware of some of the details, the expiring levy at the end of this year had a 0.1% sales tax. That will be going up to 0.15%. But that won't be an increase in the overall tax, because since there was uncertainty around what would happen with the Sound Transit Tim Eyman thing that passed last year, they weren't certain that the license fee would be around, so the license fee renewal was not put in as part of that. So that goes away. But that is why you also recently heard our District 1 City Council member Lisa Herbold, along with Council member Andrew Lewis, and I believe one other council member, but I don't recall who, are currently proposing to increase the existing $20 license fee up to $40 to help continue to maintain some of those funds. They're looking to target the license fee to help increase bridge maintenance, which we all know has been woefully lacking in the SDOT budget over the last few years,
that didn't pass. That didn't go through.
Oh, you were paying attention to the budget today. I was not.
Will
So
reported that it went through, but it got stripped of its sole focus of maintenance.
oh,
Maintenance. And
that's
so,
interesting.
yes.
So that's in the mix. The other thing I want to call attention to, and then we can have a brief discussion if anybody wants to. This funds for folks again who aren't familiar with the benefit district. One of the primary things that it has funded over the last several years has been an increase in bus hours that the city of Seattle literally purchases additional service from King County Metro. And that is what allows a lot of those additional frequency that we have here. Thanks. John mentions that it was Council Member Alex Peterson proposing that along with the other two. And so as they sort of figure out the new numbers versus the old numbers, they will still be purchasing fewer hours than it currently does. So there will be less service being purchased by the city of Seattle than before. And that's coupled with some budget cutbacks that Metro is doing. However, these dollars from the transportation benefit district are going to be what is potentially focused on us here in West Seattle to help maintain mobility while the bridge is closed. So hopefully we will be able to keep a lot of the bus service running at current levels. I definitely will be surprised if we can purchase anything above what we were pre-COVID, but hopefully we will be able to maintain at some point the frequency that we all had before we went into COVID quarantines and the bridge closure, because we're going to need that to get around until, they're telling us what, mid 2022, Deb, for bridge repair?
Yep, mid.
But that's enough of me talking here. Folks can learn more with the link at the bottom. But is there any, additional discussion people want to have? Do we want to get involved in lobbying? Anything to do with some of this money? All right.
Not today.
Don't hear anybody piling in, so.
I'll note that there's a pertinent question in the chat. Now that the benefit district measure passed, can we expect Metro Route 22 will be revived in the next schedule update?
Milton, that is a great question, and I got to tell you, this is something that we've been hammering on. We hear loud and clear from a number of neighbors here in West Seattle about this, and it's been a sore spot for us. And so we have continually pushed. Every time we have Metro, we make a point of pointing out that the Route 22 really just got sliced years ago and has never come back, even as they've restored everything else. So don't have anything to promise yet from Metro, but I can tell you that it is on our radar and we will continue to be lobbying for it. Anyone else? Yes, definitely we should advocate for. We've also been having some talk, and the board will talk a little bit more in our board next month, board meeting next month. But we've also talked a little bit about going back to Metro right now. We've had some interest for a few years now about sort of taking a look at the existing routes in West Seattle, and are they really serving ridership appropriately? And I think both with the West Seattle Bridge closure, as well as sort of, these commute changes that we're seeing during COVID and that are probably going to hang around post-COVID, we'd really love the opportunity to maybe say, if there's this, bucket of, bus hours that they're holding to move people around in West Seattle, can we rearrange those in order to better serve mobility in West Seattle while the bridge is closed? And so, can't promise that we've come up with anything as a coalition, but that is something that the board might be talking about next month. And so if that's something that interests you, let us know, and we can talk about that more in the new year, hopefully with one of our metro contracts again. I'm not seeing anybody else, and I don't see anything in the chat. Kate, do you see anything?
Nope, I don't have anything.
All right. I don't have any old business or any new business to bring forth. Board members, is there anything to bring forth that I missed?
Hmm.
I don't have anything.
Well, if not, we may be able to wrap up early.
OMG.
Do we have anything remaining? Folks should be able to unmute themselves. Are there any remaining questions amongst our members who are still hanging out? And if not, I would entertain a motion from a board member to adjourn.
I'll entertain a motion.
You'll make?
Is there a second?
All in favor?
All right.
I
All
love
those
the
in
music.
favor? All right.
Aye.
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 All right. We will
Aye.
see. We will see everyone in 2021.
Happy
Better than a
Thanksgiving.
year.